Hi, welcome back to my channel. So, today we're going to be talking about sacred sensuality and ways that you can incorporate sacred sensuality into your daily life, into your practice. And sacred sensuality is a really beautiful way of reconnecting with yourself, connecting with your body, connecting with your feminine energy and the feminine frequency. Yesterday, I dropped a video about the power and value of conscious celibacy. And I talked a lot about celibacy. I talked about the benefits that women can receive from engaging in a period of conscious celibacy or abstinence. And I told a little bit of my story about my journey with celibacy. And I mentioned a little bit about sacred sensuality and sensuality practices. And somebody commented and asked me to turn this into a video. So, your wish is my command. And I love talking about this topic because a lot of times when we hear the word sensuality, we associate that with physical intimacy or intercourse. And sensuality, while that is a part of intercourse, they're not mutually exclusive, meaning, is mutually exclusive the right way to say it? Meaning that they're not bound together. These two things can exist separately, or at least sensuality can exist outside of physical intimacy. But I don't know if you can have physical intimacy without sensuality, but that wouldn't be ideal, right? So what I'm trying to say is that sensuality is something that you can engage in without it being sexual. And I think that that word kind of scares people because, like I said, they associate it with physical intimacy or intercourse. But sensuality is just what it really is just being connected to the senses. It's being connected with and tuned into your senses and engaging with your senses in a very, very conscious way. And so you can take anything that you're doing in your day to day life and turn it into something that is a sensual practice. So, one of the first examples that I love to give when I talk about this is, well, let me rewind a little bit, because I'm talking about being in tune with the senses. So, I'm talking about smell, touch, sight, the physical sensations that we feel in our bodies, whether it's our clothing or the textiles that we're sitting on, the blankets and things that we have on our bed, being touched by another person, touching ourselves, what we're hearing and how that is causing shifts in our physicality and our field, the sensations and feelings and emotions that this physical stimuli gives us. All of that is connected to sensuality. And so a really, really beautiful way that you can engage with sensuality in your day-to-day life is your morning drink. Most people wake up in the morning and they go in the kitchen and they make, hot water with lemon, or they make tea, or they make coffee, or they have some sort of like ritualized practice centered around like a comfort drink. And maybe it's not a hot drink. Maybe you make a smoothie or a protein shake or something else in the morning. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be a drink. It could just be whatever is the thing that you do first thing in the morning to wake your body up, wake your digestive system up, nourish yourself. Like for me, most mornings I have oatmeal. Like I love hot oatmeal. So that's something that I go into the kitchen and make. So when you go into the kitchen to make your food or your libation, and let's just say herbal tea as an example, when you walk into the kitchen, most of these things that we do, excuse me, it's a little like gloomy and rainy outside, and it's making me feel a little, causing like a little like ing in my throat. But when you walk into the kitchen, we often do these things by memory. It's like rote. It's just ingrained in our body. It's muscle memory. It's not something that we actually think about. So you just get up and you walk into the kitchen, you get your bag of tea down, and then you pull the tea out and you put it in a little bag or into the strainer or whatever it is that you use to brew your tea with. You run your water, you put the kettle on, and you're doing all of these things on autopilot. You're not thinking about the steps that you're taking. You're not engaging with this practice and with this ritual that you engage in every single day of your life. To slow it down and to engage with it from a more sensual standpoint would be to walk slowly into the kitchen and have an intention set for your morning and what this tea that you're about to make is going to contribute to the intention, or what it is going to help imbue your intention with. When you walk into the kitchen and you open your cabinet and you're looking at all of your mugs and the glasses and things that you can drink out of, rather than reaching for the crusty old mug that you use all the time, maybe you reach for the special occasion mug, like the really beautiful glass crystal mug that you never use and it collects dust at the back of the cabinet because you're saving it for a special occasion. It's recognizing that every day is a special occasion. The fact that I woke up today and I'm alive and I have breath in my lungs is a special occasion. And so grabbing the one that feels really good to me versus the one that's just there and that I use all the time out of habit. When you open up the bag of tea, instead of just shoving the spoon into the tea bag and like shoveling out whatever it is that you need, pausing for a moment and looking at the herbs in that bag, looking at the herbs and the flowers, the botanicals, all of the things that are filled with nutrients and minerals and vitamins and all of these wonderful properties that are going to nourish your system, that are going to hydrate you and cleanse your blood, or whatever it is that this tea is going to do, and like really noticing it in the bag and taking a moment to smell the aroma of those beautiful herbs and praying over these herbs and thanking these herbs for everything that it is they're about to give you, that you're about to receive when you sip on this tea. And then slowly filling up the bag or the strainer, and when you turn on the water to fill up the kettle or the French press or whatever vessel you're using in order to heat up your water, listening for the sound of the water and like the metal ting that happens when the water hits the bottom of the kettle, and having gratitude for the fact that all you have to do is turn a knob and fresh water is coming out of a faucet that you're going to get to enjoy. And so everything that I'm describing is slowing down and noticing all of the elements of this practice, this ritual, because we do these things every single day and we don't realize that these are rituals that we're engaging in. These are, spiritual practices for a lot of us, but we're just not recognizing and engaging with them from that lens. And so I give the example of making tea as a way of taking something that it is that you're doing on a day-to-day basis, slowing down and getting into all of the sensory possibilities that are available to you in engaging with this practice. The sound of the water, the smell of the tea, the sight of the beautiful herbs, the way that the warmth of that water hits your lips when you take your first sip, the taste of the tea and the herbs on your tongue, and all of the different flavors and how they're intermingling together, and what that feels like in your mouth. Like all of these things are a part of engaging with something that is really mundane in a more intentional and sensual manner. Another way that you can practice sacred sensuality is in the way that you move your body in your movement practice. Something that I love to do very regularly is yoga. I love yoga. I love Pilates. I love movement practices. Or maybe you do Qigong or Tai Chi or anything that requires you to like come back into your physical body for your workout, your daily workout. And so with yoga, we know all of these poses, right? We get on our hands and knees and we do a little bit of cat cow, and we just slowly start to open up, and then we go into downward dog, and then from downward dog, maybe we do like the sun salutation sequence, or we do a vipassana. Is it vipassana? Not vipassana. Vipassana is the silent meditation. Vinyasa. We do the vinyasa, the vinyasa flow, whatever it is that you're doing, but can you incorporate more juiciness into the way that you are engaging in these stretches and in these movements. So when you're doing that cat cow, where you're opening up your chest and then really rounding out your back, maybe you are opening up your chest and adding a little, just like a little hip action, just a little something to make it a little bit more sensual, make it feel a little bit more delicious, to open up a little bit more spaciousness in your body that's outside of the typical, up and down, back and forth movement that we do in the cat cow. Maybe it's rounding your back really slowly and really stretching and breathing into those sensations and allowing that sensuality to move and evolve with you throughout the entire yoga flow that you're doing. Maybe when you're up in that downward dog and you have your hips in the air and you're pedaling at your feet, maybe you're, rounding your spine and like really moving your hips and just really opening things up and seeing what can feel really good in those movements that you're doing. And when you take yoga classes, teachers often will say this is your practice. Do whatever feels good to you. But how often do you give yourself that permission to riff or to, improvise on some of those movements that are available to you? Oftentimes we sort of just do the thing that we're being told to do without realizing that we can be creative and that we have more sensual access in those movements than we might have typically considered before. Another way that you can incorporate sensuality into your day-to-day life is through, this is another form of movement that I love to do. I have a video on my Instagram page that if you scroll down a little bit, you can find it because it's very different from a lot of the other content that I've shared in the past. And if I remember, I'll link it in a comment so that you can just click on it and watch it. But one of my personal sensual practices that I love to do is, and this sort of leads into self-pleasure, because I talked a little bit about self-pleasure in my celibacy video. And when I say self-pleasure, you know what I'm talking about. I can't say it outright on YouTube. But I start by having, I don't even know if I can say this out loud, the seduction. I start the seduction with myself in the morning. I start the seduction with myself, in the morning when I wake up. So when I know that I have the intention of engaging in a self-pleasure practice later on in the day, I will set the stage for myself throughout the day. So I have that really beautiful, sensual tea routine first thing in the morning. And I put on some music and light some incense and clean and tidy my space. Make sure that my space is immaculate, making sure it feels good, making sure I have all of the blankets and textures and things that I want on my bed, the nice fluffy pillows, maybe, my fur jacket, like silk and satin scarves, just having things around that I know are going to feel really good to me that I can utilize in different ways later on. Eating nourishing meals, feeding my body really well, making sure that I'm eating things that taste delicious and feel great in my mouth, that have beautiful textures and great flavors and a variety of flavors and a variety of textures. Putting on an outfit that feels really good to me. I have like my silk robes and my silk dresses and nightgowns and things that when I put them on my skin, they feel really good. And as a sidebar to what it is that I'm saying, like dressing, the way that you adorn yourself is another really beautiful way to practice sensuality, of looking at the tags of the things that you buy and looking at the materials that your clothing is made out of. And are you putting natural fibers on your body? Are you putting things that, come from the earth that feel really good, that carry a high frequency, versus a lot of the plastics that are in clothing? Just being really intentional about how things feel on your body, how things are caressing your skin. If you have a bunch of itchy sweaters, maybe it's time to get rid of those old itchy polyester sweaters and invest in some really nice high quality cotton knit sweaters or cotton gauze sweaters, things that are going to carry a high frequency and feel really good on your skin. So going back to my practice, putting on like my silken robes and silken nightgowns, putting some shea butter or mango butter and just like oiling my body down and just making sure that I'm well moisturized after my shower or my bath, and just feeling really good in my skin, making sure I'm nice and soft and I smell good. And every time I accidentally brush, my leg, or I brush, against something, I'm like, ooh, that feels really nice. Just really tuning in and making sure that every little moment is a sensory experience. And then when it comes time to get into the deeper part of the self-pleasure practice of really opening up that channel of sensual energy to flow through me, setting the stage with lowering my lights. My lights are on a dimmer, so I can dim my lights, and I have candles everywhere, so I light candles, and I light incense, and I put my I light my charcoal, and I get my resin incense from Morocco or my resin incense from Egypt, and light that incense so that my space is filled with these beautiful mystical smells, and I'm clearing the energy and just releasing what it is that I've been holding on to. And then one of my favorite parts of my sensual practice is I have a pull-out mirror here in my bus. And even if when I was in my house and I would do this, I have a big mirror in my bedroom, and I just get in front of my mirror, turn on a really great playlist. I have like a tantra playlist on Spotify, and different artists that I know have the exact like sensual, sexy vibe that I'm going for. And when I am playing this music, I dance and I move my body and I watch myself in the mirror. I watch myself move in a sensual way, and I get really activated and lit up and turned on by the visual of myself, the visual of me in my reflection, the visual of me moving my body in a way that feels really good. And as I'm observing and watching and witnessing myself in that movement, also feeling into the sensations of that movement, and how if I move my hips this way, then it releases some of that tension that I've been holding. And then if I just sort of, oh my goodness, I ran out of card space on my camera as I was in the middle of talking about that stretching. So I am going to have to edit this video, but that's okay. But yes, just like stretching and like feeling into the sensations of that stretching and just how good it feels in my body. And the more I connect with myself, the more I lock eyes with my reflection and move and do all of the things that feel really good in my body, and I don't judge those movements. That's one of the most important things, is to not judge yourself. You don't judge what feels good. You don't judge the sounds that you make or the emotions that will rise to the surface, because when you are in this practice, especially when you're combining music and movement and incense and the intention to release, the intention to clear what's not serving you, then sometimes emotions come to the surface, sometimes fear, or sometimes tenderness or grief or anger, frustration, or whatever it is that you've been holding on to will start to rise to the surface, especially as you're opening up those channels in your sacral center, opening up your hips and your womb space, and creating a little bit more fluidity. You'll start to feel things from an emotional standpoint that you also want to welcome and engage with from an honest and truthful and loving place, not trying to suppress it or judge it or say this isn't right or this isn't supposed to be happening right now. Just simply trusting that what you're experiencing right now in this moment is what is meant for you to be experiencing, and just leaning into that and going with the flow of that, because sensuality is all about fluidity. It's about going with the flow. It's about allowing and being receptive. And you do that from a space of having set like those parameters and those boundaries for yourself, then you can be fully receptive to whatever is coming up in those beautiful moments. Now, I would love to talk about, the next step of the sensual, self-pleasure part, but I can't talk about that on YouTube. You'll just have to come into one of my classes or one-on-one work with me to do that, because I have to keep this very even keeled so that my channel doesn't get hit or I don't get reported or anything like that. But these are some very, very simple ways that you can just start incorporating sensuality into your daily life. Sacred sensuality is about understanding that sensuality is your birthright. It's something that you have access to all the time as a woman, as someone who is, connected to your feminine essence. And yes, for men too, like men also can engage in these practices because men have that. They have that inner feminine as well that they can tap into if they're choosing to be initiated into that. And so just thinking about your day-to-day life, thinking about all of the things that you do that you treat as mundane or as a chore, or it's just something that you're doing on autopilot, and then ask yourself, how can I take this mundane action or this mundane practice or chore that I'm doing every day anyway, and how can I make this something that feels really good, that is sensual, that gets me back into my body, gets me back into my senses, and brings me into the present moment? Because that's the ultimate benefit of being in sacred sensuality and incorporating these practices into your day-to-day life, is that it grounds you into the present. Because a lot of the times when we're moving through our days, when we're moving through our lives, when we're making our coffee, when we're making our tea, when we're doing our yoga stretches, our mind is elsewhere. We're thinking about all of the things that we need to get done that day, or we're thinking about, a conversation that we had that's still bothering us, or we're thinking about some of the stresses that we have. But when you are focused on the sensations, the sensuality of it, of being present, of being in your body, it grounds you in the here and now. And when you're present, when you're grounded in the here and now, you come from a place of deeper clarity. You can make better decisions from this place of clarity. And then it also helps you sort of tune out a lot of the noise that will come up throughout the day, and just come back to that moment of realizing that you are safe, you are protected, and that you can engage in pleasure anytime you want, and you can make the simplest, most boring things in your life pleasurable. So let me know how this lands for you. Let me know some of the ways in which you are incorporating sensuality into your day-to-day life, or how you are planning on moving into incorporating sensuality more into your day-to-day life. I really appreciate you being here today to listen to me share this, and I definitely will be doing more videos in the future. I'm going to figure out how I can talk about this in a way that doesn't get me or won't get me in trouble on YouTube. But like I said before, if you want to dive deeper into talking about some of the ways that you can engage in sensual, sacred sensuality, especially if you are moving into celibacy or considering a period of celibacy, then drop into working with me either one-on-one in some of the offerings that I have, or in my group containers. Right now, I am openly enrolling people into my Selfish Bitch initiation, which begins on January 7th. And throughout the course of this 21-day initiation, we will be talking about all things femininity, all things feminine energy, the divine feminine frequency, sensuality, boundaries, celibacy, all of the things that are really, really important to a woman gaining her sovereignty and her freedom back from all of the people in her life that are extracting from her, from the conditioning that she has been conditioned with, that teaches her to overgive and to people please and to treat other people's desires, other people's pleasure as more important than her own. These are just a few of the things that we're going to be diving into over this 21-day period. So if you're interested in that, the link for the Selfish Bitch initiation is in the description box, and I will also pin a comment with the link so that you can find that. If you have any questions, let me know down in the comments below. Please please subscribe if you haven't already. Let me know what you want to see next. Let me know what topics are on your mind that you want me to talk about, and I'll see you in the next video.